So today we're going to be discussing a rant on regular history because I was doing research into several items today, several parts of history, whether I want to discuss the Assyrian Empire, if we're going to talk about the Mongol hordes, or we're going to dive deep into South America because we don't know, we haven't done too much on South America yet. If we're going to go in the Olmec Empire, and as I was doing some research into them, either one of them, seeing which for the topic today, there comes a time where I was questioning the sources that I was getting them from. The sources themselves were questionable. Now, where do we get most of our research this modern era? Where do most people, right? Wide and vast research is done. And a lot of things, a lot of people do is get on YouTube. It's a great source of information. It's a great way to dig deep into things. Also, books. Books is an old and forgotten one starting to get out there. But now, if you want to go deeper than that, it's getting the original transcripts from whoever may have written it, Greek, Latin, Spanish. Because when I was looking at the ones, all the research, whether we were going to do a South America today, was most of the writings, the information we do have on them, the good detailed, is either done by archaeologists, historians from Mexico or South America, which is done in Spanish primarily. And I don't speak Spanish. My comprehension of it is very little. So I have to get translations. And the translations of them, there's 2 to 3 different kinds of translations. And that in itself is a problem because just the changing of a little few words here and there can change a lot. In Spanish, if they were looking at the pyramids and they're translating them from Aztec or Olmec, those civilizations before them are Mayan, they're not translating it from Spanish. They're translating it from those languages of that people. So now I'm getting it either fourth or fifth hand, and that's already a problem. Game of telephone. Just some thoughts. Now, you're getting this from me, so you're probably seventh or eighth hand, maybe 15th hand. I don't know how far deep the rabbit hole goes. Something to think about when you're getting information, whether it's YouTube. Try to go far as back as you can to the source. And if it's another language, just be in mind that the translation to your language still may be off. That's just how it is when you're translating. So today we're going to be discussing a theory. I thought this would be a little bit better than parts of history because a theory is essentially what history is. This historian thought this, his theory. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of theory on none of those topics. And we're going to be going on the West Coast of America, North America, primarily Washington and Oregon in that area. And today we begin. So the Japanese are a ocean people. Now, the ocean people, they like to explore. So are the Samoans. Samoans, the Hawaiians, sea-bearing people, all those island people like to explore on the oceans. I want to tell you an old Blackfeet story that I once heard a while back now. Now, the difference between Blackfeet culture is our history is oral tradition, passed down from person to person. So, this is what I heard. Now, this had to be a really old story. There's this old Blackfeet war party, went out, took their crew with them. And they went from here and there because the Blackfeet are nomadic tribes. So they wander. It's in their DNA to wander. So they decided, a group of guys got together and said, hey, you know what? We're going on a war party. Let's take it. When you're going on a long war party, you just don't leave with all men. When you're going out long, you're going to be gone years, you take your family with you. So it becomes a war band. And you're traveling. And they head over to the Washington, Oregon area. And when they got there, they met the people on the coast, the tribal people on the coast. And the coastal natives aren't very tall. They're a little bit smaller. Blackfeet are huge in stature. The the statistic I got was the average Blackfeet before pre-contact, pre-Columbian contact, was 7 foot tall because their diet consisted mainly of buffalo, eating that every day. That's a large protein diet. And when you're breeding and eating and living off of the buffalo, your genetics are going to be different because you're having a higher protein intake. Now, there was this, so the average Blackfeet's about 7 foot in this time period, pre-Columbian contact. Modern days, 2024, average Blackfeet's about 6 foot. That's still pretty tall. The average American's like 5'8", 5'10"-ish. But nah, we're talking Blackfeet people here. Because the diets have changed. It went from buffalo to now processed foods. Still, 6 foot is the average height. It's still very tall. It's just the protein intake's not the same. That's a whole nother topic. But essentially, on this war band, they get to the coast, and all those coastal tribes were intrigued. Who are these natives? Why are they so tall? At the same time, they were being visited by another group of people, and these group of people were seafaring, and they came over on a big canoe. That's what they said, a very large canoe. Now, this has to be what I was told was the canoe was so big that you could walk from one end to the other end, and it'd take minutes to walk. Now, it has to be a pretty big boat. And they said that they got that canoe washed up on their island, and they wanted to know where it came from. No, my bad. The tree that they made the canoe out of washed up on their island. And those island people said, where did they make trees this big? We must go find it. So they made that tree into a canoe, and they got on their boats, that canoe, and they sailed it all the way across, and they landed. Well, it turns out that canoe was only tree that was so big at the time is redwoods. A storm must have washed up, knocked a redwood into the ocean, and that redwood floated all the way over to one of the islands. Drifted. Now, they took that canoe and they came back over here. And they met up. And they met those, because at this time they're visiting. Now, I don't know how long they're visiting the ocean people, which tribe it was. But I have some theories on which tribal people it was. What I was told, it was either the Samoans or the Hawaiians. But when they met, the Blackfeet are very adventurous people. It's just in their DNA. They got asked, would you like to come with us back to our homelands? Said, yeah, sure, I would like to go. And those other Blackfeet went back home, back to the mountains, told that story about this giant canoe, biggest they've ever seen, and how some of their people went with them over there, across the great water. Now, that story, I've heard other parts about that specific adventure from the Hawaiians themselves. Different pieces. But what I was told was that Blackfeet guy who went over there just married into their people and eventually became a part of them. But what I heard from the Hawaiians later down the line, eventually stories do bounce back and forth. Whether it's Blackfeet going to Hawaii, Hawaiians coming up here, you kind of mingle. And indigenous people like to talk and tell stories amongst each other about adventures and stories. Now, what happened? And this is where some things come into problematic, is because the problematic part is gatekeeping. Tribal people don't like telling you stories unless you're part of their tribe. If they see you as a non-tribal member, they might not share those stories with you because you're not their people. And therefore, a lot of stories are lost in time because of that. Also, here's the other part I see to it. Do you deserve to hear about these stories? Do you deserve to? I don't know. I could tell you deeper details about the stories I heard, but do you deserve to hear them? And there we go. The twistery of history. Now we have problems. But that's the truth. Only so much is shared. I thought that was interesting. That story, that little small story about what may have happened or did happen. I'm pretty sure it did happen. Redwoods. You know, there's a really cool story I have about the Blackfeet. In the eight, oh man, I was in the tribal office. I was walking down the hallway and I look over and there's these old photos of the council members. And this one had to be from the first council, 1920s, maybe 1909. This photo was taken. There's these Blackfeet standing there. And there's this one dude with a panther sash made out of leopard skin, essentially. It was either a leopard or a panther. It was one of those skins. And he had it as a sash going across him. So, whoa, that's pretty cool. I've never seen anything like that. And this is an old photo. And I know those guys weren't. I wonder how he got it. Was it passed down to him? Was it a gift from somebody? How did he get that? This is interesting looking at that. I was driving one time and I picked up this hitchhiker up in by Lethbridge, Canada. Picked him up, Indian guy, gave him a ride. So what's your name, man? His name was, I don't remember his first name, but I remember his last name. Panther Bone. I said, oh shit. He's like, yeah, man. So where does your last name come from? And he says, well, a long time ago, a war party went down south, and they said they killed this big cat, essentially, like a mountain lion, but down there, down south, they killed it, and he brought back the bones of it. And it was a panther bone. And that's what they call it. And that's just his name and passed the last name down to me. Oh shit. So they went down all the way down to South America, all the way to pre-contact. Got themselves a panther bone. That's a story I heard. Pretty neat. That's his last name, so it kind of has to be true at that point. If it's a gentleman's last name, told a story about how he got it, how he got the last name, how it was passed down. You know, wow, pretty unique. There's always last names, how they got it, where it come from. Well, anyways, that's all I got for today. Like and subscribe. Check us out on Rumble.